Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
Welcome back into the Outlaw Lawyers. Josh Whitaker, Joe Hamer are your hosts, managing partners at Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. Offices conveniently located Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay-Varina, Gastonia, and Morehead City. And joining us from the Morehead City office, Cassandra Nicholas. She is remote, and we are talking all things legal. If you've got a situation you're facing, you've got questions, you can always call the firm. 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call is about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. And you can always email your question to the program, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. That's questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. And, of course, we'll answer those on a future program. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate, and now we're going to get into what is an easement.
It's a very sexy tease for probably a topic that most people wouldn't find super entertaining, but I'm telling you, it is one of the questions we get most frequently in our real estate litigation department is, what is an easement? Do I have an easement? Does this person have an easement? How do I maintain the easement? Can this person block an easement? Easement questions we get all the time. I don't think we've talked about easements on the show before, so I figured this would be a nice time to do a primer on easements. But what was our haiku on Max Headroom from our co-host Chat GPT?
So our co-host Chat GPT has spit out our Max Headroom haiku, and it goes a little something like this. It goes, Max Headroom, strange face, synthetic voice, broadcast king, future's first virtual. I don't even know what that last sentence means, but I dig it.
I'm really amazed.
That's art.
Yeah, I'm really amazed at these haikus we get. I feel like we should put our names on them and start putting.
Oh, they're definitely. I mean, it's our co-host. It's our personal licensed co-host.
We're gonna start commit. I don't know what kind of fraud that is. If you don't make any money on it, and you don't turn it into anybody. But our haikus that we release freely to the public, we're gonna take credit for those. All right, easements. Joseph, you want to tell me what an easement is?
So in its simplest form, right? It's just a right to travel over land, essentially.
Yeah. Why don't you ask Chat GPT what easement is?
Yeah, for sure. I'll do that, and we're gonna get a great answer from probably better than mine. I'm not a robot. I'm a human boy.
And so an easement is the right to travel over, use in some capacity another person's land. That's what an easement is, like Joseph says.
Yes, you really expect ChatGPT to work quickly, and it's constrained by the internet, man. We're not on 100 gig connection here. An easement grants right to use another's property for a specific need. I think it actually did that as a haiku. Wow.
Do it. Say it again.
An easement grants right to use another's property.
Look, man,
for a specific need. I didn't realize I had it in haiku mode. That's why it took so long.
Look, man, we might as well all just retire because Chat GPT.
That was great.
I want to be the lawyer who practices law but only speaks in haikus.
Yeah.
And Chat GPT, I've always wanted it, but I just didn't know how I was going to do it. And now I think I know how we're going to do it. All right, so I'll give you the most common instance of an easement, right? Let's say I have 10 acres, and I decide I'm going to split my 10 acres up. I live on 5 acres of it, but I'm going to split it up. I'm going to create a new 5-acre lot. You got to go through the county, right? The county or the town. You got to record a plat. You get everything approved, and you make this new 5-acre lot. And you deed it to somebody who's going to build a house on there. They don't have to build a house, but you deed it to somebody. They got to have access to it, right? So you can give them an easement a bunch of different ways, right? There can be an easement on the plat you have recorded, right? A private road, a shared driveway, but they're going to cross over your piece to get to a public road, right? It's easements. The most common ones that we get questions on are access easements, and it's people getting from their property to a public road, right? So you buy a piece of land. One of the things we do as closing attorneys, as real estate attorneys, is we make sure you have access. And if access is anything less than public access, whether it be a shared driveway, a private access easement, We're going to search that up and make sure it looks good. And so that's what I'm kind of focusing on today. There's utility easements, all kinds of easements, but access easements is what I wanted to focus on. And so we get that call a lot, and there's a lot of different ways you can have an easement. The ones we just talked about are all express easements, right? It's on a plat. It gets deeded to you. And those run with the land, right? So as long as the land is in its state there, 100 years from now, somebody's going to have that easement, right? If you deed somebody an access easement, a true easement runs with the land. It'll be here for hundreds and hundreds of years until the parties get together and change that relationship. And so it's very important to understand how those get formed because they're fairly permanent. And a lot of people don't necessarily like that or get confused because someone is crossing over your land. There's a dominant track and a servient track and just get a ton of questions. But I'm trying to think of the most recent question I got on easements.
So, and while you're thinking of that, you talked about access easements, another extremely common type of easement that we see every day. Don't get as many questions about them, but again, it's something you see on virtually every subdivision plat or map of a place where people live, and that's a utility easement, which is again not for the sole purpose of accessing property, but it basically says that utility companies can come on to your property, onto these easement areas, and either access or change whatever the infrastructure is that sits on that. So think potentially water pipes, cabling, electrical grid infrastructure, things like that.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of people call the office and be angry that somebody's using their land in a certain way, or Time Warner cables out there digging up, digging something up, and you can usually go back to the recorded plat, the register of deeds. You can look at them like, well, yeah, they got a 10-foot easement on that side of your property, and they can do that, right?
And a lot of people don't realize that because again, that's not. When you get a deed, generally speaking, you're going to get a deed that's going to take exception to easements of record. But that deed's not going to specifically spell out like this 10-foot utility easement that sits on your property. So it's a thing that you really wouldn't even know was present unless you took the time, went to look at your plat and understood exactly where it was. You just have to assume that if you have electricity at your home, that there is some form of utility easement, on your property in some fashion, most likely.
Every so often we get the call too, where, you've got like a private road, right? So you're on Highway 401 and there's a private road. Usually it's a dirt road. It comes off and it goes down a ways, and there's 10, 12, 15 property owners that all access the public road, Highway 401, over this dirt road, this gravel road, even paved, right? It's just a private road. And so that road belongs to somebody, and everybody else just has an easement to transverse it, right? To cross over it. Ingress and egress, a lot of times you'll hear in legalese. But, there's rights, and we'll get a call where someone like 3 lots back has blocked everyone else, right? They've just decided, right or wrong, like, hey, I own this road, or you're screwing it up, I'm going to block it. And you can just never block an easement, right? You're always in the wrong if you're blocking a legitimate easement. But we see that come up from time to time. That's usually a pretty urgent call.
Yeah, don't do that.
And then for my nice coastal office out here, a more exciting easement that I encounter a lot is an easement with rights to water access. And that can be a really valuable easement to a property, making sure that you have access to the ocean.
Yeah, we see that a lot too in like kind of lakefront communities, having access to the lake, having access to the beach. That's usually, there might be some public access, but having private, a private easement, private access to things like that's a really big deal. And, there's things you can or can't do with an easement. You can't destroy an easement. You can't overburden an easement. I can't give you a 10-foot easement as a shared driveway, and then you build 500 apartments and then use that little 10-foot access for all 500 of those, people who live in apartments on your new lot that you just got. You can't overburden, you can't overuse, you can't destroy. There's maintenance requirements, right? There's all kinds of things with easements, and especially if, you're sharing an easement with someone you don't get along with, or someone who doesn't really seem to take care of it. just a lot of opportunity for disagreement.
Yes.
But that's a quick few minute introduction to easements. But again, something we see a lot of, and I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, if you guys ever wanted that deep dive on easements, you write in, you let us know. We'll do an easement show. We'll talk about easements by prescription. We'll talk about easements by necessity. We'll take you into the real exciting corners of real property law that I know everybody's jonesing for.
All right, next up, we're going to ease into this next topic, and that's how do attorneys get paid? We've hit this before, but a lot of people are asking that question, so we'll hit it one more time. The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, managing partners, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. Also, Cassandra Nicholas joining us on the program from the Morehead City office. And again, convenient locations for these offices: Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, Gastonia, and again, Morehead City. If you've got a legal situation you're facing, maybe some questions, you can always call the firm, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Or you can email your questions to the show, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. We'll answer those on a future program. We're back right after this.